Now, President Biden held a press conference on Wednesday to mark his first year in office. At his inauguration, he promised his focus would be fighting the pandemic, growing the economy, healing the division in the country, and re-establishing trust with America's allies to deal with threats from abroad. So, how has he done? Well, joining me on the programme now to discuss that is Kelly Hyman, who's a Democratic strategist, and also Greg Swensson from Republicans Overseas. Thanks, both of you, for being here on the programme. We'll talk about the detail in a moment, but give me 30 seconds each, first of all. Your assessment on this first year. Kelly, you go first.
I think Biden has done an excellent job the first year he's been in office. Let's think first of his accomplishments and what he's gotten done. He has passed the bipartisan infrastructure bill that helps the U.S. roads, our bridges that need desperate help. He also passed the COVID relief package that a majority of the Americans support to help people that were struggling personally, professionally, and financially because of COVID. There's a lot more to come. This is just the first year, and it's a great start.
Greg, your take?
Yeah, I think it's obviously been a difficult year for the president. There's no doubt about it. I think that's indisputable. Not only the tactical failures, but many of the self-inflicted wounds. For example, the border crisis and Afghanistan, obviously. But the top three issues right now that Americans care about, according to polls, are inflation, the border, and crime in many of the Democrat-run cities. So on those three metrics alone, I think the president is failing. He's got, he's received really poor grades, and I think that's reflected in the polls. So not a good year for the president, and I don't know that he's going to be able to really turn it around at this point.
I'll come to those areas that you pinpoint in a moment, Greg, but let's start with a little more detail about foreign policy, because Joe Biden, even yesterday in that news conference, seemed to muddy the waters about what perhaps a minor incursion into Ukraine in terms of the response. We also saw the chaos of Afghanistan. In terms of foreign policy, how would you assess it?
Yeah, I think foreign policy is an area that he has really made a mess of. I mean, and it's not just Afghanistan. I think if you look at the cuts that he tried to make to the military, before the Congress actually rejected those and added $25 billion to the budget, but by not agreeing to the policy or not endorsing the policy of peace through strength, I think that's done a disservice to the American people, but also to our allies. And and I'm sitting here in London in the UK, as the chief ally of America, it's not very reassuring to the British that that the pullout from Afghanistan was such a debacle, and also you're cutting the military. I don't think that he's really giving any sort of confidence to our key allies.
Kelly, on that point, because Joe Biden in those early weeks and months kept stressing America is back, he was talking to his allies, and then on Afghanistan, he simply pulled the rug. Now that has profound implications, doesn't it?
That wasn't his fault. We have to first look why the U.S. was in Afghanistan in the first place. It was a war that a majority of Americans did not support.
Sure, but the way it ended was a fiasco, wasn't it?
I disagree with you. I don't believe it was a fiasco. I think that Trump wanted to get out sooner, and a majority of people didn't support it. You can't have a place that doesn't want to fight for themselves or fight alone. And that's nothing that the Biden administration could have helped or done or facilitated. A majority of Americans wanted the troops back home and didn't want them in Afghanistan.
Kelly, let's turn from that to domestic policy, because that dominates, of course, the thinking of so many people. Greg talking about polling a moment or two ago, but it started well, didn't it, with the stimulus package, but the 12 months has ended with the Build Back Better totally stalled. So your assessment on the key domestic policies and how that's gone?
Well, yeah, those are both programs that did, as it turns out, did not have great support from the American people. The 1.9 trillion stimulus at the beginning, yeah, it polled well. Whenever you give money to people, when you send $1,400 checks, you're going to get some appreciation for that. As it turns out, that was a massive contributor to the inflation that we have right now. So the American voters consider inflation the #1 issue right now. So surely having another 1.9 trillion in stimulus and attempting to get another 5 trillion in the Build Back Better plan, I think that was a mistake in retrospect. It did get some Republican support, as did the infrastructure plan, but enough is enough. And I think, too many dollars chasing too few goods, between the too much M2 supply, too much money supply, which is quite inflationary, and also the pressure on the private sector, the regulatory burden hurts the supply side.
Kelly, does Greg just simply skip over all the benefits of 1.9 trillion in terms of relief and then the infrastructure package you touched upon a little earlier?
Absolutely. First off, the infrastructure bill was bipartisan that passed and majority American support. The Build Back Better plan has not been passed. We have to remember what the Build Back Better plan is and how it helps the American people, helps people with childcare. It helps people with prescription medicine, and it's going to help people and also help the inflation. Biden is working to piecemeal the Build Back Better Act and get it passed, and I think that's key, and that's going to help. And also he's working on the supply chain issue to help the inflation. We also have to look at the unemployment rate. We look over how great the unemployment rate is in the U.S. under the Biden's administration. I mean, It's been his first year. He's been doing great. There is more to come.
But he goes into the second year with 7%. He goes into the second year with 7% inflation. I want to touch on the pandemic. A brief 30 seconds from both of you on that. Because, again, it seemed to start well with the vaccination campaign, but problems over testing and then that huge jump with Delta. Your assessment, both of you quickly, on that. Greg, to you first.
Yeah, look, right now in the polls, he's been given a C score. So he started out, with great metrics on COVID, and he had great support at the beginning of his administration in the polls. But now he's polling at 46 on COVID, which is his best area, believe it or not, compared to the economy, inflation, foreign policy, and crime. So if that's the best he has, and he's only polling at 46, obviously a failure on testing. He also failed to purchase, the therapies ahead of time. So, for the most part, I don't think it's fair to blame Biden for people dying from COVID.
We're nearly out of time, so Kelly, I'm going to get you a quick response from you.
Any American who is eligible has the ability and the capability to get vaccinated if they want to, and also to get a booster if they want it as well. Now people can get COVID-related tests that are free and it's accessible. So follow the science, get vaccinated, get boosted. We only have over 60% of the U.S. vaccinated, and so the more we have, the better it will help for the greater good for all of us.
We are out of time. Kelly, thanks for your time. Greg, thanks for your time. We didn't even discuss just the split there is right across America.